napapanahon na po siguro upang dinggin natin ang hinaing ng mga magulang at pasyente na nagsusumamo upang maging legal na ang access sa lunas na kanilang lubhang kinakailangan. Hayaan po ninyong ilahad ko ang mga mahalagang probisyon ng landmark legislation na aking pong inihahain sa bulwagang ito. Una, sa pagsasabatas po ng legal na akses ng mga lehitimong pasyente na nangangailangan ng medical cannabis. Layon po nating bumuo ng Philippine Medical Cannabis Authority, PMCA, sa ilalim po ng pangangasiwa ng Kagawaran ng Kalusugan o Department of Health, na siyang otorisado para sa pag-issue ng permit sa mga pasyente o lisensya para makagamit po ng medical cannabis. Ito rin po ang nagtatasa, nagbibigay pahintulot at nag-i-issue ng mga angkop na permit sa lahat ng mga may kaugnayan sa cannabis. Ginoong Pangulo, pinunong mayorya, sa mga kagalang-galang na miyembro ng lupon na ito, matapos po ang ilang buwan ng pag-aaral, konsultasyon at pagdinig ng subcommittee na pinamunuan po ng inyong lingkod, ikinalulugod ko pong ihain sa plenaryo ang Senate Bill number 2573 sa ilalim ng ulat komite bilang 210 para sa panukalang Cannabis Medicalization Act of the Philippines. Sa puntong ito, ay nais ko pong hingin ang inyong atensyon sa compilation ng mga video ng mga pahayag at patotoo sa benepisyo ng medical cannabis.
I think what we're finding now is as momentum builds, more and more people are looking into diseases that can be treated with medical cannabis. And I think that's important because we don't have treatments for some issues like autoimmune or nausea and vomiting, again, with chemotherapy, and this seems to fit into that. When people ingest CBD and THC. THC is the psychoactive one that also gets you high. CBD can treat some of the things you've mentioned and doesn't get you high. So what we're doing here in the States is actually trying to look at the ingredients, the compounds that lead to different effects. And the more we learn, actually, the studies are promising. And I will say that in 50 states, many have legalized it for medicinal purposes, and some have legalized it for recreational.
Medical cannabis can help with cancer pain.
Cancer pain. So remember now, when we talk about medicinal marijuana or medical cannabis, there are a lot of potential applications and a lot of exciting, interesting research. Different ratios of CBD to THC in their cannabis, and really found some very positive and encouraging findings about the relief of their cancer-associated pain. And I think the big picture here is that, you know, however we feel about the topic of cannabis, recreational versus medicinal, it remains and is showing itself to be a very valuable resource in terms of its medical applications, because we know that it is very difficult to treat patients who are living with chronic pain.
Charlotte had been having seizures since she was 6 months old, and she had been diagnosed with a rare genetic condition called Dravet syndrome. None of the medicines that had been prescribed for Charlotte had worked, not one of 17 different prescription drugs. I had heard pretty much the same thing that Paige had, that there was a compound in the marijuana plant called CBD, or cannabidiol, that might be able to control seizures. There was one study on it published in 1980, and I just happened to have read that. So CBD is remarkable. I filled out the necessary paperwork so that Paige could go down to the dispensary and buy all of the high CBD, low THC cannabis in Denver, 1.5 ounces for $800. And Paige gave it to an herbalist friend of hers in Colorado Springs who extracted it into an oil, and then Paige very nervously put several drops of it in Charlotte's mouth. And then finally, when Paige did call me, she said, Dr. Shackelford, Charlotte has not had one single seizure for an entire week, not one. It's like a miracle. And Paige was right. It was a miracle for Charlotte.
So the majority of your prescriptions that you write are basically for what ailment that people have?
Well, as I looked at my statistics, of the 13,000 patients, 75% are being prescribed for pain. But when I look at the pain, many of these patients have not only traumatic injury or cancer, many of them have pain related to multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, and spine injuries. So there's a long list of reasons why people are being prescribed opioids. Some of them truly beneficial, like in patients with cancer. Opioids not only cause the potential for death, but also mental issues, depression, constipation, disorientation. So opioids have a long list of side effects that medical marijuana may help out.
A last desperate chance to save her daughter brought her online, where other parents were talking about the wonders of cannabis oil. Sarah decided she had nothing to lose.
There were no children without a heart at the time who had tried it. So she was the first, and
How soon before you saw a response?
immediately we saw, like, that day, seizures just weren't there. She wasn't seizing.
She obtained a prescription for medical marijuana. That's what she was taking out of the oven, which she turns into cannabis oil for Maya.
I'm just putting in 250 mils of coconut oil.
She has developed a process to extract the oil to get a 1-to-1 ratio of THC to CBD, the active ingredients in marijuana that have changed her daughter's life, the whole family's life, really.
Are you happy?
It means that we all can breathe, I guess, a little bit. We've always felt like, we're just holding our breath, waiting.
Yeah.
Now it's just so much different. We can do things as a family.
After 6 months, they performed another EEG at sick kids and were astounded by the results.
He said that it was completely normal, and he said miracles happen in the email.
And indeed, he did.
Colt's mother, Jamie, credits medical marijuana for taming her son's severe autism. Stories of autistic children harming themselves and finding relief through marijuana have led many, like the Crops, to move to Colorado.
I knew that if I came here to Colorado, that I would be protected, that I could get Colt his medical card, and I could start treating him with cannabis.
Colt qualified due to a rare skin condition. His mother began giving it to him in different forms, vaping and homemade tinctures with strong levels of the psychoactive component THC.
I make this probably about once a week.
Jamie makes what she calls a miracle drug for her son from their own plants. The difference has been visible.
As CBS Fall.
Yeah. Riley Maitler takes her medical marijuana.
I take it 4 times a day, 1 in the morning, and then during lunch, and then during dinner, and then at night before I go to bed.
The 13-year-old from Delaware says cannabis oil has helped treat the tumor that was eating away at her bones. The news from the doctor was grim. Riley, who was 7 at the time, was diagnosed with aggressive giant cell granuloma. Only a handful of people in the world have the disease.
I was just so uncomfortable because, seeing my face in the mirror and it's all big, and it made me really sad and stuff. I was also in pain because of my seizures that I started having. My stomach would cramp up and I started to hallucinate.
After surgery, Riley's mom decided to give her medical marijuana to see if it would help her symptoms.
I was so scared. Anytime you give your child any kind of new prescription, you're scared because you're looking for those side effects. We just researched a lot and came across medical cannabis as a possible alternative that could help her heal, and I couldn't find anything that was detrimental with using that.
The tumor, it shrunk. The seizures, they stopped.
Taking cannabis oil, it made me feel so much better, and my bone was growing back, the roots of my teeth were growing back.
Ginoong Pangulo, wala na po sigurong pangarap ang bawat isang miyembro ng lupon na ito bilang mga halal ng taong bayan, kundi makitang ang bawat Pilipino ay may epektibo at pantay na akses sa dekalidad na serbisyong pangkalusugan. Ika nga po ng isinisigaw ng United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, leave no one behind. Sa wikang Filipino, walang maiiwanan. Ginoong Pangulo, napapanahon na po siguro upang dinggin natin ang hinaing ng mga magulang at pasyente na nagsusumamo upang maging legal na ang access sa lunas na kanilang lubhang kinakailangan.